Welcome to Progressive Soup. My name is David Stevenson. I'll be tonight's host. Tonight we have a very special guest. We have one of our mayoral candidates for the city of Danbury. The other mayoral candidate was unable to join us, but we have with us Lynn Taborsak, and she's the Democratic Party mayoral candidate for the city of Danbury. Lynn, thank you for joining us.
I'm glad to be back, Dave.
So, you want to talk about specifics this time, I understand.
Well, it was great to come on the show. I think last month I talked to people who somehow might have missed knowing anything at all about me, and that took up a whole program. So I thought I ought to come back and talk about what would be different with a Taborsak administration at City Hall in Danbury.
Probably are the best known person in the city of Danbury, maybe except for the current mayor. But you're certainly up there in terms of people knowing you for many, many years, lifelong Danbury resident. And what specifics would you like to address this evening?
Well, I wanted to give people kind of a taste of what would be different about it. What would it look like? And I think one of the big things is decision-making. Right now, decision-making at City Hall happens in the mayor's office. And that's not very democratic. And that's something that I would do differently. I don't know how many people are aware, but we do have a legislative body.
Yes,
it's the City Council.
Yep.
And the City Council actually has a legislative process. In fact, I think that they're meeting tonight, but every time they meet, they have an agenda. And if there's a serious item on the agenda, that item will be sent to an ad hoc committee. And it's at that level, the ad hoc committee, where you expect to have some kind of discussion and debate and an exchange of opinions take place. That's not happening now, and that would change. I think people know that the mayor gets to appoint the committee, and right now, because we have a big Republican majority on the council, he will appoint 2 Republicans to the ad hoc committee and 1 Democrat. There was an item in February on the agenda to consider having an off-leash dog park for Danbury residents.
Yes.
And that was Joe Cavo's idea. And the mayor set up an ad hoc committee, and that ad hoc committee will meet with, let's see, the 3 council members.
Correct.
2 Republicans, 1 Democrat, the director of Parks and Recreation, that's a good idea, the Corporation Council, I don't know why, but maybe we do need the city's attorney in case someone gets bitten. The director of planning, once again, I don't know why we would include that person, and the director of public works. So what happens in an ad hoc committee meeting is members of the public can attend.
Yes.
But they can't speak, and they can't ask questions. Other council members who aren't named to the committee can attend, and they may ask questions and participate at the discretion of whoever is chairing that meeting.
So the person is directing the meeting, which, as you mentioned, would be Joe Cavo, is able to determine how...
Well, actually, the chair of that committee, it was his idea, but the chair of that committee was Mary Teitschultz. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is that's the level where you want to have an open discussion, an exchange of ideas. You want to hear all of the opinions that there might be about whether having an off-leash dog park is good or not. So in a Taborsak administration, at the ad hoc committee level, the public could participate. They could ask questions, they could express their opinions and their viewpoints, and they'd be listened to. I've been to lots of ad hoc committee meetings, and the chair has never had any discretion. I think they keep leaving it at home. They forget about it.
Now, I don't imagine that would probably drag out a meeting too very much, because
It could drag out a meeting, but that's exactly the meeting where you want to have every idea put out there so that you can evaluate them. Now, this particular ad hoc committee was thinking about using the Highland Avenue playground for the off-leash dog park, and under Taborsak administration, that ad hoc committee would probably meet at Morris Street School,
right,
so that we could involve people in the neighborhood who might have opinions, who might have a point of view that we won't hear at City Hall.
People that would have access to readily have access to meeting at Morris Street School.
And I guess that I'd have to give John Newmuller a big attaboy, because people wouldn't even see the non-debate, non-discussion that goes on at most ad hoc committee meetings if he wasn't there taping for Danbury Live. So hats off to him.
Big hats off to you. Big John.
The other difference I think people would see is that I am not going to silence people who have different opinions and different viewpoints than I do, and I'm not going to surround myself with yes men. I don't think that that is very representative of the city of Danbury. I want to have a lot of participation from the public. I want to have a lot of civic dialogue that we can hear. I want to hear different points of view, and I want more participation. And we don't have that now, so that's going to be another change.
How is that different from the regular city council meetings? Because I've been to them, and I noticed they generally seem pretty pre-programmed and pretty much cut and dried.
Well, one of the things about encouraging more civic participation is that you won't have Lynn Waller and Margaret Mitchell and Joel and Marjorie Brooks being the only members of the public who come month after month to speak about items that are on the agenda. I think I hear an awful lot of frustration from voters who say, you know, it doesn't matter. I can't speak at these ad hoc committee meetings. If I did speak, they wouldn't listen to me. If I wrote a letter to the editor, nobody would care. There's this tremendous amount of frustration because our process isn't open, we aren't listening, and we aren't hearing different opinions and different points of view. And that won't be true in a Taborsak administration. We're going to have that participation. We're going to try to grow new civic leaders, because we can't let Lynn Waller do it all every single month.
Well, kudos to her for showing up in meetings, but you're right, there should be more people there.
The other thing I think is important is I'm not going to use the politics of division, which the current mayor has done over and over again. I'm not going to blame immigrants for the downturn in the national economy. I'm not going to blame teachers because of our low test scores. And I'm not going to blame local banks for foreclosing on local mortgages. I think when you get into blaming, then you're forgetting that it's really your job as a community to come together, to solve problems, to find solutions, and to fix things. We have to stop blaming. We have to fix things. So that'll be another thing that will be different about a Taborsak administration at City Hall.
Now, both you and Mark have backgrounds in education. Both of you have been teachers. How is your viewpoint of how Danbury's educational system is working? How does it compare to his?
Well, I think that education is going to be the single most important issue in this particular election, and it's because of the overcrowding of our public schools. The classes are overcrowded, the class sizes are too big, there's a lack of instructional space, and I think we've seen kids using corridors and stages and closets and hallways for learning, and that's not what we want in Danbury. One of the problems is the mayor keeps telling the public that he created 2 new elementary schools, and we have to kind of clear the water on that. We have a brand new international magnet school, and it was approved by the City Council and by voters in Danbury in 1999. Mark Boughton was a member of the legislature at that time. He
Yes.
wasn't the mayor. He didn't bring about this state-of-the-art middle school. He didn't secure its funding. All he did was actually go out and cut the ribbon for that project. The thing about the overcrowding problem is our magnet school is an interdistrict school. So the first class, I believe, had 278 students in it. Only 170 could be from Danbury.
Compare, we have a question from one of our crew members. If you compare and contrast how Mayor Boughton has worked with the council members and how you might work with them differently.
Well, the council right now is a rubber stamp for whatever the mayor would like to do. There are no independent voices, and there is no debate and discussion. That will be completely different. People don't agree with me now. I don't think they're going to change after November 8th and say, oh, Lynn has all the right ideas. That's not how I operate. Ideas about how we solve problems in Danbury have to come from everyone. It has to be more collaborative, not from the office on the 4th floor of City Hall. The other thing, when we talk about our problem with overcrowded schools, is that we did build a new school on Ellsworth Avenue.
Correct.
But it was a school that was built to replace one that has just recently been torn down.
So rather than being a new school, it was actually just a replacement school.
It was a replacement school originally in 2001 when Tim Connors, who was the superintendent at that time, brought the proposal to the council. We were talking about having a 2-story elementary school with about 81 classrooms, and that would have really solved overcrowding at the elementary level. And the thing is, if you look at K through 5th grade, those are the most critical years for learning. If kids don't have the things that they need when they start school, they're going to fall further and further behind.
As a retired educator myself, I say amen to that.
Yes. So I don't know if you've been by Ellsworth Avenue School, have you?
I've seen it.
All right. It's not 2 stories. And it doesn't have 81 classrooms. It has 28. So under Mark Boughton, that school got smaller. We didn't solve our overcrowding problem. And while he tried to solve it by buying the Emmanuel Lutheran School, I think we've seen that that school has been empty for 6 years after we purchased it. We're paying now to knock it down and to start all over. But it means that a lot of kids started kindergarten in 2005 and have spent the last 6 years in overcrowded conditions, in poor circumstances, and it's not right. I'm going to work with the Board of Education. I'm going to work with the superintendent of schools to solve these problems. I'm not going to run out and say, we can do this by buying a commercial building on Ridgeberry Road. We aren't going to solve it by buying a building on Ridgeberry Road.
I had a brief Facebook conversation with Mark about Emmanuel Lutheran and didn't get very far with it. Could you clarify what actually happened with Emmanuel Lutheran with that purchase?
Well, we signed a contract to buy it in 2004. The idea was to use it for a Head Start facility in order to take all of the Head Start classes out of our elementary schools and offer something that parents in Danbury have been asking for year after year after year. It's called all-day kindergarten. So it was bought for that purpose. When we bought it, when we signed the contract, we waived all of the usual inspections that you have.
I've heard that, and it surprises me greatly because who buys property and doesn't inspect it for things like asbestos, the kind of things you'll find in a building like
asbestos, mold, lots of poor mechanical features that had to be corrected. Well, nothing happened to the school. Conditions in it got worse, and I think, as you see now, they have just gone out to bid to demolish it and to start all over from scratch.
Rather than use the building that they paid money for, they're just going to demolish it.
They're going to knock it down, and they're going to put in pods or some, I'm going to call, engineered buildings that will come to the location already built.
Now, I know you've been shy about being rough on Mark about that purchase, but I think it's important to note that the building not only was bought with no buildings and inspections attached to it, but it was bought by from a church, by a church, and the seller of the church ended up buying a church that belonged to.
Well, I'm not going to pick a fight with churches, but the reason there was a rush on this contract was that the Emmanuel Lutheran Church wanted to use our deposit to buy property on Clapboard Ridge, where they now have a school and a church.
Was the money was turned? The contract money was turned over before anything was done?
Yep. I know Bernie Fitzpatrick was fired for doing that, but the city of Danbury agreed to do that so that Emmanuel Lutheran Church could purchase the property on Clapboard Ridge.
What are your, if you could encapsulate your 3 top priorities as mayor, or if you want to add more to the 3, that's fine too. What are your top priorities as a prospective mayor of the great city of Danbury?
Well, I think one priority that we haven't talked about that I'd like to talk about is economic development.
Well, let's leave the 3 for last. We'll go to your top 3 at the end, but let's talk about economic development first.
Well, what I wanted to do was to say that we have to promote Danbury as a place to do business, and I'm ready to do that. But it should be the highest priority for the city, and not something that, like, my chief of staff will do as a sideline.
You mean as in Mike McLaughlin?
No, actually, it isn't. It isn't Mike McLaughlin. It's the mayor's chief of staff, Wayne Shepard.
Wayne Shepard, who used to be at the News Times, yeah.
Who used to be a part-time economic development director, but who had to take over as chief of staff when Mike McLaughlin was unable to do that, when he was elected to the state
Right, and
Senate.
he had promised to only do the one job rather than do double dipping, if you will.
Yeah. But there's something more important about growing business in Danbury than growing the grand list, and that is the fact that our people need jobs. This economy has hurt a lot of people in Danbury, and I don't think that we need to look to Wisconsin or to Schenectady, New York, to find workers. I think that we have a highly qualified workforce in our city, and we need to be trying to bring in jobs for them, and they ought to be a priority. The emphasis recently in economic development has kind of been to attract service sector jobs that we used to say were for teenagers.
Low-paying jobs, in other words.
Low-paying jobs, service sector jobs that can't support a family in this area.
We brought in a restaurant recently that probably fits that description.
Yep,
that we had a big hoopla about it opening up.
We have the Cheesecake Factory. It may hire 200 people, but I think most of them are going to be $8
or $9 an hour.
$8 or $9 an hour, and hard work, and not enough money to support them and put gas in their car or pay their taxes or even buy a home. So we want to make sure that economic development is bringing in good jobs, and we want to make sure that the people in Danbury are considered as our basic pool of applicants. I think one of the things we can do is ask contractors who provide services for the city of Danbury to hire qualified Danbury residents. I know that we contract out for some of our data processing, we contract out for some landscaping, for custodial work. We need to ask these subcontractors to make it a point to hire Danbury residents. Now, I don't have a magic wand. I cannot fix the national economy, but I can ask, for instance, the Danbury Public Library to set aside an area somewhere in the stacks where people could go to do job search.
Living in Bethel, that's a big issue in Bethel, and there's a lot of people at any given moment that the Bethel Library is open that are in there doing job search.
And we could try to set aside space in city offices or in the social service department where there could be regular networking groups, people who are all looking for jobs, who have leads. They can talk to each other, and you know, we might not create enough jobs for everyone, but let's create an atmosphere where we're really trying to help people connect with what jobs there are.
So in other words, as opposed to just an occasional job fair, which we see in Danbury.
Job fairs are great, but what can we do as a city that won't break the piggy bank, that really will help people find work, apply for work that's in the area, and help them with maybe technology that they don't have in their homes.
And of course, when people are working, well, first of all, they have a better sense of worth about themselves, but also when they're working, they're paying taxes, and as you say, they're able to buy homes or pay a little bit higher rent to people that own rental property in Danbury, which puts more money in the city's coffers and gets recirculated back to city services.
The other thing about economic development is I think that city center has to be a part of that too.
Okay.
And I guess I would say, people may be surprised about this, that BRT needs to fish or cut bait with Kennedy Place.
They've been sitting on that for quite a while, haven't they?
Yeah, and it is a bad economy. And I will also have to say that I think BRT has done a good job on Crosby Street.
The apartments there.
I went, not the apartments, I went to Brugger's Bagels.
Okay.
It's very nice.
Okay.
Common Ground is there, it's very nice. The mural on Crosby Street, it's very nice. This helps downtown. It will bring people downtown, and it's attractive. But we need to do more. BRT has to fish or cut bait on Kennedy Place. We cannot have that pile of rubble just sitting there year after year after year. And I think we need to attract some kind of niche retailer, just one, to locate down here. And I'm willing to give that niche retailer a tax break, but they've got to come in with a way to provide jobs for people who live in the city of Danbury. And I think once we have that retailer, that niche retailer, that others will follow.
Certainly having people living in Danbury, working in Danbury would solve a lot of the issues on 84, because a lot of our workers come down the pike from Waterbury because they can't afford to live in Danbury because they don't make enough money working in Danbury to live in Danbury.
And I think we can also try to make sure that the Palace Theater does become a magnet for the performing arts, that it attracts people downtown.
Yeah, that's made some strides, but certainly a lot more to be done there.
I think we need more parks and playgrounds, community gardens in the downtown area. I've looked at, I think it's called Parcel 9, which was very near the gas ball, the Yankee Gas property.
Yes.
There's lots of potential there. Joe De Silva has a nice piece of property on the corner of Keeler and Liberty Street that would make a wonderful garden, playground. And when you have these green spaces and things to do and sidewalks that connect them and the Still River running through, I think the downtown can really provide some economic muscle for our city. Certainly the banks are staying here. Certainly the healthcare is staying here. The social services are staying here. We need to develop that. We need to make it better and better.
Now, we've got some history behind us in America of a city that went from a city like Danbury to something a little bit more than that, and that place is called Manhattan. And along the way, and you laugh, but someday, presumably, Danbury is going to be what Manhattan was 100 years ago. We may reach that point. And I think maybe we have to look forward and plan for that potential. And do we have any place in Danbury that would be something akin to New York's Central Park?
That remains to be seen. You know, that does remain to be seen. We have all kinds of parcels that can be developed. Maybe what we need to do is is hook them up so that it becomes a linear way for people to go from White Street all the way around to...
Rather than having one rectangular park, have a series of parks in a linear fashion.
That are connected.
Okay, interesting. Let's get back to your, are you ready to do your maybe top 3 or maybe more top objectives as mayor of Danbury?
Mm-hmm. Sure. They're very simple, very straightforward. Restore democracy in Danbury. We've got to get the decisions out of the 4th floor office of the mayor and give them back to the people. I want to see more public participation. I want to hear different opinions. I want different viewpoints. And I want people to come and feel that they can express them and be listened to. So that's number 1. Number 2, the schools. We've got to provide instructional space for the kids who are in our schools. It's the biggest and it's the most important investment we can make in our future for our city. People aren't going to come here, they aren't going to move here, they aren't going to get a 30-year mortgage and buy a home here if we have failing schools. So let's tackle that problem. I'm not afraid to take it to voters and say, listen, we have 619 new elementary school students. Where would you like them to be? Shall we put them in the auditorium at Broadview, in the boiler room at Danbury High School, or do we really need to create some elementary instruction space for them? I think if you make a case to voters, then they can listen to it and decide. And they will decide. We won't pull the wool over their eyes. We'll take it to a referendum. The third thing is the economic development. It can't be on again and off again. It's got to be consistent. It's got to be full-time. We have to have someone who's willing to work very hard to bring good jobs into the city of Danbury, jobs that pay a decent wage. And we've got to use the city center as part of that economic engine. So 3 things. They're going to be different. They're all important to me. And I hope that on November 8th, we have a chance to have a change in the city of Danbury.
Well, if I have an opportunity to have Mayor Boughton on the show, I'll ask him about the concept of restoring democracy, the concept of, as you mentioned, education as being an important priority, and see what he has to say about his viewpoint of that and his viewpoint on economic development. And we'll compare and contrast. Since we're not going to have a debate this year, it appears, because the Chamber of Commerce seems to be... what was the term? Lack of funds?
Bad economic times.
Bad economic times. That doesn't sound like something the Chamber of Commerce would say.
No, they're always saying that we're really headed in the right direction.
And yet we don't have money for a get-together and a mayoral debate.
One of the things about the running
Thank you. This Progressive Soup. We've got to cut it off there. Thank you for joining us. Enjoy your evening. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Dave.
All righty. Enjoy your evening. I saw a minute and then I saw... I saw a minute and I saw 30 seconds and I got confused with you.